Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm pleased to be here for the AI Enablement panel. My name is Sarah. I'm partner at BGV. So we are a venture capital firm investing in AI-based enterprise software. And we are fortunate to have with us today 3 innovative and exceptional AI companies. We're an investor, so I'm a bit biased, but I'm sure you will agree on that front at the end of the panel. And we are discussing a lot about AI, ethical AI, but this is a way to really understand and have concrete examples about how to implement AI solution and how to adopt ethical AI solution. So we have with us David Fraser, product manager at MindsDB. We have Anna Felander, CEO and founder of Eng.ai, and we have Debu Chatterjee, CEO and founder of Comfear. So thanks for joining us today. And maybe as a warm-up question, can you spend like 2 minutes to introduce yourself, especially your personal background as it relates to AI and ethical AI, and also describe your company and why you decided to create your company, and for you, David, what's behind MindsDB inception?
Sure. Hi, can everyone hear me? Cool. Okay, so I'm actually now I lead product at MindsDB. So I transitioned from being a designer to a senior product manager. MindsDB is a very popular open source framework. So it's very popular, and we're now commercializing that as a product. And what we do at MindsDB is we're doing SQL with AI. And the reason we're doing that is because we believe in reducing the barrier for entry for a lot of developers. So our mission is to democratize artificial intelligence. And in the last year, we've focused a lot on our enterprise offering as well as our cloud offering. My background is in web development and user experience design. Before MindsDB, I was working for one of the largest health and safety classification societies in the world. And what they effectively did was they informed on a lot of regulations, specifically in agriculture, in marine, in oil and gas. And I worked for the software arm. So we were developing solutions, predictive solutions, that would predict the propensity for equipment to fail, but also the propensity for a loss of life. So that's a little bit about myself.
So I'm Anna Felander. I founded Eng.ai in 2018. We screen AI solutions for ethical and legal risks and provide our clients with trustworthy and embracing their roadmap on AI. So I was an economist before. I worked at the Ministry of Finance for 8 years with macroeconomic forecasting, and then during the financial crisis 2008, I worked at the Prime Minister's office. And then I left for the banking industry and became the chief economist at Swedbank, that is Sweden's largest retail bank. At that time, I saw underneath the cyclical movements a structural shift in hidden values from digitalization due to new business models in the tech scene. So I did new measures on the positive externalities of digitalization, new productivity and inflationary measures. But in 2016, I saw that AI was implemented in the large organizations without any guardrails. So I started my multidisciplinary research group at the Royal Institute of Technology in 2016. This was the beginning of when you talked about fair AI, right? So we did with a cross-functional or integrated tech, legal, and business lens, we did an ethical AI risk assessment methodology, starting with the root causes in the organization and to exhaust the risk landscape. We got funding from the state, so we could test and vet the scientific method. We did consultancy, and we put it on a SaaS B2B platform in 2022. That was way too early because the market needed more maturity and education. Now there's 3 headwinds going on for our solution. Number one, the AI Act is around the corner. And as you heard Francesca and Giovanni speaking in the panel here, you need to do impact assessment in every stage of the AI lifecycle with human in the loop. So that's one core reason for cross-orchestration and reporting to non-tech stakeholders and have control and oversights of ethical AI risk. Number two, Gen AI, now it's the non-tech decision makers that asks for both compliant and cost efficiency from Gen AI. And the third thing is open source, because we need the validation of ethical and legal uses of these open source models.
Right. Thank you, Anna. I'm Debu Chatterjee. I am the CEO and founder of Confer. This is a company which started 2 years ago. So this is a company we started 2 years ago, and it basically drives operationalization of AI governance. So our thesis is very simple. Our thesis is that all software is going to use AI in some form, whether you build it inside your company or you acquire it somewhere else. AI is going to be a part of the software. If AI gets regulated, pretty much software is going to get regulated. So there needs to exist a standard way of delivering governance, risk, and compliance for organizations, so that you understand how you're using AI and what additional risk and benefits they bring to your organization. Now, for background, I have, before starting this company 2 years ago, I was the first AI head of products in ServiceNow. All that the ServiceNow's AI products, have actually been built by my team, and we ended up in ServiceNow because my previous company, my first startup, DX Continuum, which was the first MLOps platform, was acquired by ServiceNow in 2017. So I have been in this AI industry for almost 13 plus years directly working with it, especially before ServiceNow, before DX Continuum, it was FICO. I headed the healthcare fraud analytics, catching bad doctors, bad dentists, and bad pharmacists. And of course, I have an enterprise background of Oracle and Informatica before that. So essentially, in the Silicon Valley, more than three and a half decades of enterprise engineering. Today, we are working with Confer to bring a system to operationalize AI governance within the organization. And we will ask you to, we have a booth here, S28, so you can come and see our product in action.
Thank you all. So I would love to move to a broader landscape and discuss the adoption of AI solution by enterprise. So maybe we can continue with you, Debu, and to understand what's your view on the maturity of AI solution by enterprise. And especially it would be interesting to understand your view on the US market and share your experience also at ServiceNow.
Yes, thank you for asking the question. The enterprise use of AI has significantly increased. Over the last, I think, 5 to 6, 7, 8 years, different forms of AI has been used within the products. Primarily in the B2B sector, it was being used to improve the productivity of different organizations. There was a whole bunch of AI usage in the customer service segment. For example, helping agents. I mean, because I did my work in ServiceNow, I have a little bit of a customer service, IT service management leaning. But essentially what we were doing is we were improving the business processes, and anywhere where a decision was being made, like, if you had your own old-fashioned Visio diagram of a decision process, a diamond where a decision gets made, essentially would be coded in, but now you are transforming that decision into a data-driven decision. So that was the first set of products which usage of AI within environment, and there was some class of usage around forecasting, because the ability to take time series data or a series of data and try to predict what would happen was a big one used in anomaly detection and other kind of machine learning programs. Now, fast forward that to, say, 2023, and now with generative AI coming in, the class of problems which are being solved is more around being able to write out a report of things which are unstructured in nature and doing stuff. So if I go back again, I mean, when we were doing case summarization, I'll take case summarization for example. Case summarization is a classic problem which agents have, where agents are moving a task from one point to another, and you have to put notes, and the notes has to be summarized. But typically, it's not an extractive summarization or an abstractive summarization. The summary, the important information is the end of the notes. That is a hard problem in normal NLP. But with generative AI coming in, that problem is likely more solvable, and you will have a much better summarization of the work which has been done. Generating natural language queries to create reports instead of having standard bars and stuff. So a large class of problems in the enterprise space using unstructured data is now solvable with AI. And that has been kind of the adoption. The adoption maturity curve has definitely increased. The power, the support, and the hardware available to do those things has completely changed the landscape. So I think it is getting into that hockey stick part of AI adoption. It's probably at that that inflection point.
Thank you. Anna, can you share your view on the European markets?
Yes, and I agree with Debu. There's actually, it's happening now. So the companies we work with, the leading or the boards, they try to figure out how are we going to do this AI roadmap. They're used to specific AI, but the fact is it's happening, and it's not happening in the tech silo. There's Gen AI all over the company. So the first thing that when the AI Act is coming around the corner, you need to say, okay, do I have AI as it is categorized in or identified in the EU Act, AI Act, and is it high risk? Because if it is high risk, then you have to do, well, if it's prohibited, you have to take it off the market or the deployments. But if it is high risk, you need to do these impact assessments. You need to do explainability and all the trade-offs that the tech team used to do. Now you have to demystify the tech team, and that requires a different type of, not discussions. I heard them talking about discussing with ethnicists. It's actually, and also it's not like GDPR. It's totally different, this AI Act, because you have to do it with data-driven tools, and you have to do it with the combined and integrated lens of tech compliance and business. So what we're going to see now is categorizing low, medium, and high-risk AI. When there is medium and low risk, I mean, there's endless productivity opportunities, and also very much leadership challenges, because you have to explain and actually convince and encourage your employees that this will not take away your job, this will augment your job, and you will have a lot of gains from using with this technology. So with this said, the explosion of Gen AI and open source will explode in the low and medium risk sector, whereas in the high risk sector, there's new governance approaches that needs to be put in place. And it cannot be the way you did with GDPR, to have an Excel sheet from the compliance team when the product is already going through product validation. So now you have to do it per design.
Yes, as you say, it's much more than discussion. It's how to put it in practice and work here. David, regarding your perspective, what's your perspective on the enterprise adoption to open source product and LLM?
Sure. We work with a lot of customers from finance, retail, and entertainment. And we have our enterprise offering, as I mentioned before, and our cloud offering. So when it comes to enterprise, what we often see, to echo Debu's point, is when it comes to generative AI specifically, is our focus tends to be on fine-tuning and RAG as well. And within that scope, we see a lot of internal use cases. And we see a conflict often within the leadership decision-making and the developers. We're building a developer tool, so there seems to be a bit of conflict in there. But, however, by fulfilling internal use cases, what that does for a lot of organizations is it protects their brand reputation, because they're not pushing these systems out into production externally, and potentially they don't really understand the real risk of these particular systems yet. So we have a little bit of time on our side as an open source offering, and especially when we have a lot of design partnerships and we're building in collaboration with the enterprises that we work with. But I believe that there's a real education piece that needs to take place, specifically with a lot of developers. As Francesca said earlier in the earlier talk, it's about thinking about ethics at the beginning of the software development cycle. That isn't a conversation we have.
So let's zoom in on the ethical AI side, because we're talking a lot about ethical AI. And I would love to hear from you, where are we in terms of ethical AI products? Is it too early for mainstream adoption? And what are the external factors that will drive the adoption beyond the regulation? So you can start, Anna, if you want.
Just looking at the EU and comparing to US, so the EU was in 2021, in April, they proposed this regulation. So that's really early. As in the US, the Biden administration just recently collected the 7 tech giant to say, okay, we have to know if there's this misinformation because our democracy approaching the election is being threatened here. So it's different forces, whereas the AI Act said, we're not going to innovate and violate the EU citizens' human rights. So it's different perspective. And it's also beyond compliance, because it's not, you cannot fail fast. Once you discriminate and privacy intrude or manipulate people into behavior and actually harm people's safety and spread social exclusion, you have customers that don't trust you. So trust is key here. So there's 2 trends in organizations. You account a responsible AI officer, and then you have to report and explain to your clients how you use their data in a trustworthy way, and how you use your algorithms, saying that you recommend, but you don't unethically nudge. I mean, this is, I've been surprised, working with this since 2016, I've been surprised by the consumer voice being so low, because as consumers, we've been very, we've been really, it's been in our everyday life to gain those effectiveness and tailorizations due to our mobile phones. So we have kind of neglected the fact that there's faultiness and there's unethical discrimination. But now with Gen AI and the regulation, I think the customers will they will demand some kind of ethical AI principles when they opt into different solutions. And there will also be, we're talking about the tech giants, there's some more open sources, it's good, but also among the big companies, there's more competition, and there's like Financial Times just selecting and cutting off OpenAI to go for Gemini. I mean, there's a lot of positioning here, and as we select a bank or a insurance company, it's about trust. So you have to communicate how you do your ethical AI.
Debo, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think what Anna was saying is exactly the way we should approach this ability for us to add trust to it. Essentially, the way I look at, and obviously my thought process has been morphed into what we have as a product, is that organizations will have to deal with a lot of regulations. Regulations are going to come, but that should not impede the ability to create products and innovate. So how do we match the two together? And that today can actually be solved a lot by a generative AI, because generative AI allows a company to produce documents which can answer the questions which the regulators are asking, and you can do it at scale. And you can do it for an AI regulation, you can do it for non-AI regulation. The other interesting aspect of AI, use of AI and the applications which are using AI is there are existing statutory bodies which will regulate you irrespective of whether it is an AI or not. In fact, in another panel, I was telling that the OpenAI questions which are given to OpenAI was given by FTC, if I remember correctly, not by a regulatory authority like EUA Act or something like that. So, so essentially, you got to be playing a role where you need to think about the onslaught or proliferation of regulations and the proliferations of the assets on which you're going to run this playbook on. And the assets are things like applications which consume AI, and as consumption of AI stuff can be models which are being built using data in an environment, or even our foundational model services, which is going to be in external cloud services, which people are going to use and K-short learn their product with their use case with their data, and then use it within the products. Because essentially, not all companies are going to have enough hardware to run and build their own models and do it themselves. So you got to run it in a very effective way. And we have the capabilities now to run like governance and compliance process, which would probably take weeks and months in days and hours. And GenAI actually plays a lot of good role in there.
So just a comment, that is correct, but there's two comments here. First, you need to have a human in a loop, so you can't automatize the entire governance and screening process. And number two, as we have the platform and the user journey for assessing and recommendations to the user, we see that there's still a lot of education to be done. So the way we work with the platform before you subscribe it is that you really need to put the awareness of accountability within the different functions of an organization. So with that said, there has to be an ownership from each silo of an organization and awareness that if this is my responsibility, and there will be penalties, and it will be cost associated for not doing this right. So we have some time before we can make the automated screening to comply to the AI Act with some more education.
And I want to continue with a bit provocative question, because you are all three on the startup space, on the AI and ethical space. And the question is, do you believe you entered the market at the right time? Is it too early for you, too late? Is it the right time? Maybe you can start.
Yeah, sure. We began as an AutoML, and we've pivoted towards LLMs in the last 6 months, as a lot of startups have. And we focused on time series mostly, and now we're starting to do a lot more in LLMs and specifically fine-tuning. I can never tell whether it's too late or too early. It's really difficult to confidently identify that aspect. But what we are seeing is that within enterprises, there's a lot of excitement. I think there's also a lot of noise, and they're generally moving quite slow. So on that basis, I believe it's the right time. And we build in collaboration with a lot of these enterprises. I think one of the external forces to keep in mind is, if you think about Moore's law, that the amount of transistors on a microchip doubles every 2 years. So in the next 2 years, we're going to have the application of the EU AI Act, but on top of that, we're going to see a lot of very powerful compute that is going to be available more cheaply as well. So you're going to get more powerful foundational models. Equally, you're going to have enterprises that want to train specific large language models for very specific tasks as well, and they'll be using training data. I think with open source, in terms of the foundational models, open source is transparent. You can see the architecture, the code. Often you can see the training data. I think the conversation is going to change for us, in particular, when we start seeing a lot of these organizations put these models into production.
So, Sarah, we've been too early for a long time, but it's happening now, and it's happening because now the going from specific or narrow AI to Gen AI, we see that the specific AI has been done in organizational silos with no guardrails nor return on investment requirement. So we have seen statistics that 80% never reach deployment and 60% of that is never cost efficient. Now, as Gen AI creates cost efficiencies in the entire organization, CEO wants to see these measures and to be compliant. And that also pushes specific AI to be more related to the business and to the profits and to that kind of stream. So I think with the open source, as I said, and also with the leadership and to be able to count the return on investment as well as an open source is positioning us right. And also I think the fact is that we've been screening over 250 AI use cases with our methodology, and it's scientific based. So I'm happy to stand firm in the methodology that is underlying the platform, and also is underlying how we use large language model layers to do the user journey more frictionless.
The way I look at it is, there's never a good time to say like which is the right time or not. In a startup world, if you are going to create a category and drive to it, you probably will always be early, and you have to generate the category through a good education. Specific to us, people may think about AI, GRC, governance and control as a specific category, but I have not seen that we are restricted to only AI assets, right? Literally, what I can see is the product, which has been the way we have developed the product using generative AI, ability for us to map this function, convert regulations automatically into set of controls, run the controls using the documents provided. It's really a GRC, a disruptor. So we can go after the general governance, risk, and control stuff, and we can actually handle both, say, AI acts as well as non-AI acts like DORA, MiFID, or it could be SR 11.7, or it could be NYC law, or any of those regulations. PCI, SOC 2s, which we have not tried, but we know it's available. So it's question of how you, where the pain is, and we do see the pain being around the ability of organizations to scale to handle lots and lots of regulations through which they are being controlled. But the number of people who are going to service those regulations are not going to increase drastically. The number of stakeholders who are affected by the thing are only going to increase drastically. So how do you reduce the amount of resources you spend per regulation and per type of asset? And that can only be done, or I won't say only be done, there's always multiple ways of doing things. But one way of doing it is actually use generative AI to enable AI adoption inside the organization for solving business problems. So this is actually a business problem. We are actually bringing the ability for you to score your risk posture much better, having the visibility in it. So that's the way we are targeting the market.
Thank you. And maybe to wrap up the session, I would love to hear one piece of advice in one sentence, this is difficult, that you would give to the audience, especially for enterprises that are here.
Can I start?
Yes, sure.
With looking at the VC scene, we haven't talked about the cost of not doing a governance, risk and compliance governance on your AI solution. So when you invest in small or scale-ups, on top of their mind is not ethical AI or be compliant. So I would advise you all to have a data-driven platform to screen your portfolio or potential investments for these ethical and legal pitfalls, because once you scale discrimination, social exclusion, lost autonomy, it's very costly for you to turn that into a profitable business.
Sure. What I often observe is that AI is this hammer at the moment, and everything is perceived as a nail. So we have a lot of customers that approach us and they want to use AI to solve a potentially non-AI problem. And I think it's think carefully about how you're using AI and be more human-centric. Think about the interesting abstractions that AI can create, and it can really widen the adoption of a technology.
So I don't know if I can give advice to a VC because I've never been a VC myself. For an entrepreneur, the advice would be definitely follow your passion. If you do believe something is the right, so follow the passion is one sentence. That's pretty much what I would say. Let me wrap it up there.
And for enterprise?
For entrepreneurs, it is follow the passion. For VCs, it would be you got to take an outside bet. If you're always trying to de-risk your investment, then you're a banker, you're not a VC.
That's beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the transparency and all the insights. I need to take my plane in 1 hour and a half, so I need to leave, but I encourage everybody to keep the conversation going and engage with those three entrepreneurs and AI experts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.